All right, so this hand we have the Legends Antonio Esfandiari versus Daniel Negreanu. So the hand starts out. Phil Hellmuth, I think, raises Ace Deuce off. Negreanu flats King 10 of diamonds, and then Antonio Esfandiari 3-bets the pocket jack. Shout out to Antonio Esfandiari, good buddy of mine, and attached with some of my projects. So here we go. Zach, just let me know when you want me to pause.
Can't see Phil calling here. Phil's gone, and Daniel, not surprisingly, is going to call 8,800 more with the King 10 of diamonds.
Cuckoo or anything, so I can call. 12. I check.
Daniel checks in the dark, and the flop comes Queen 6-10 with 2 spades.
Daniel flopped a pair of 10s. Antonio would have preferred if no overcard to his jacks came up. Queen probably concerns him a little bit, but it's not going to stop him from betting here. I don't think it's going to stop him from betting here. What Antonio's probably thinking about right now is how much to bet. He's got 15,000 in his hands.
He gave me the dirty look. He's gonna bet 15. You're gonna bet 15, right?
What are you gonna do if I bet 15?
I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna after you bet 15, I'm gonna say how much you got left. I'm not saying I'm gonna put it in, but I don't really know. But I definitely have something there, that I can play with. It won't be an easy decision, I promise.
Everything you do
Either
conveys information.
All right, well, we guess we got
All right. And how much you got left? 10,
50.
50? 50.
Very interesting. Daniel said, if you bet 15,000, I'm going to probably put you all in. A lot of talk. Daniel was just successful in the last hand against Johnny Chiang, raising with a pair of 6s. Got a pair of 10s here. Doesn't have the best hand.
Okay, here. I'm all in.
There goes the bricks again. It's a brick festival.
All you can eat. The whole in shebang. That was nice to hear. He went, had me scared for a second, tell you the truth.
All right, I'm going to take a liberty and pause here. What do you think of that statement?
Yeah, there's a few things to talk about in this hand. Actually, in Verbal Poker Tells, I mentioned 3 things in this hand in 3 different parts because I just think this was a good hand with a few different interesting things. So yeah, the thing you mentioned, that was nice. Had me scared there for a minute. I have a little chapter devoted to that in the book. I call it genuine or expressions of relief after a bet isn't immediately called. That's my technical wording for it. But so basically it's when, just like here where somebody shoves and the other guy doesn't immediately call and the guy's like, whew, that had me worried for a second. So those kinds of things are almost always going to be truthful. And what it means is it's basically taking off the top part of the range. It's usually going to indicate, in this example, for example, it would mean it's much less likely for Negreanu to have a set here. It's just a truthful statement that somebody might do with, what Negreanu has, but probably more often with a hand like Ace Queen or something like that. But the important thing is it will almost always, I've only seen it done trickily like one time, it will almost always indicate a truthful statement with a good but not super strong hand.
Right.
And I think that was a factor in Esfandiari deciding to call eventually. Along with a couple other things, maybe. I think Esfandiari is pretty good at this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
he's amazing.
I think he excels at that kind of psychological interpretation kind of stuff. You want to keep playing because I guess and then we'll go talk about a couple other things in there.
So yeah, one thing is back in the day, I used to play with Esfandiari in full lock, and Esfandiari it's so torturous to play against him because he's like a cat playing with a mouse all the time with his tabletop. All right, gonna continue.
Daniel now
That was
feels that he
close.
has the best hand.
For me, it was like a coin flip. I wasn't sure if I had you or not.
Yeah, that's another honest, kind of really elaborating on that
Ace
uncertainty there.
What you got?
Queen. Yeah, ace 10, huh?
By what you have to say, my guess is you have a pair of jacks, correct? Yeah? Yeah. Must be jacks, the way he's talking.
I'm sure Daniel has made a lot of good reads in his life, but this is not a particularly impressive one.
Bang.
You gotta have the queen.
It's not bad. I mean,
Can't have anything else.
Maybe.
He sees that Antonio is afraid of a queen and not that afraid of a 10. So surmising that Antonio has jacks is pretty simple at this point. The thing
Gabe.
that was deceptive is Daniel showed a lot of confidence when Antonio
Can't be a
didn't
meme.
call immediately, and that made Antonio believe that Daniel had queens.
Yo, king, queen, huh?
Gabe, they're on camera. There's a lot more at stake.
Jackson, any good?
You want to see a card?
Yeah.
I can't show you a
Come
card.
on, one
Are you
time.
crazy?
One time.
You know I can show you a card.
One
this
time.
No, I can't show you a card. I don't have a good one to show you, to tell you the truth. God, so sucky.
Antonio's taking a lot of time because he's trying to pick up something from Daniel.
Feels so gross when you show me a king, queen.
I'll show you a card after you fold. How's that?
Ooh.
Just in case.
Wow, look at Antonio stare him down. Daniel should not have said that.
Make you sleep better.
Whoa.
I don't know if Antonio's going to call, but Daniel should not have. Oh,
Oh,
wow,
yeah,
there we go.
Here we go.
Jacks are good. You got
Daniel's in
that?
trouble
You have
now.
a 10 9 of spades?
Nah, I got a 10.
Wow.
I didn't think he had a
Okay.
queen.
What a call.
Yeah, so
All right, let's do it.
yeah, so that one may make you sleep better. I mean, that's going to be. So you have to think about obviously, I think this can vary with good players because we're aware of
Reverse
they're
tells.
more likely to be tricky. But I still think from my knowledge of Negreanu and watching him play, and just good players in general, it's pretty rare even for them to want to kind of put up an obstacle to a call and say. I mean, he's basically implying that with it'll make you sleep better. He's implying, whether you think he's being deceptive or not, he's implying that he has a queen, and I think Esfandiari picked up on that and thought, how likely is it that if Negreanu had me crushed here with a queen, that he would want to present some little obstacle like that? Like, obviously, in Negreanu's mind, he's doing something that could go either way. He's saying something that you hear people say a lot, but he's probably hoping that it'll just be interpreted as a nice kind of funny thing to say. But I think in Esfandiari's mind and in our mind, I think we should think, if Negreanu knows he has Esfandiari crushed, like what are the chances that he would want to present this slight obstacle and imply that he has him crushed, basically. And in my reviewing, when I wrote Verbal Poker Tells, I spent 8 months full time reviewing a lot of televised footage and taking notes when I played. And it's just when it comes to good players and Negreanu specifically, I just had it's rare to hear that kind of thing from somebody who is pretty certain they have somebody crushed. They might be tricky, but they won't present it in such a way, an obvious way of basically implying I have you beat. So that is kind of strange, I think. And I think Esfandiari would know that. And I think even Negreanu might have known that after he said it. He was like, yeah, that might have been he was getting a little too loosey-goosey, I think.
Yeah.
Long story short, I think he got a little too loosey-goosey, and he probably realized that. I don't think, that's the only time I can think of a similar spot where Negreanu basically, aside versus another good player, I should say too, because Negreanu's capable of doing all sorts of things, making strong hand and weak hand statements versus players he thinks are more recreational because he can control them better. But when it comes to saying that kind of stuff to another good player, it's pretty rare because you're very careful with when you're implying hand strength with another good player, right? And so going back to something else earlier in their hand, the other interesting thing in this hand was on the flop when I guess we're on the flop when Esfandiari was talking to him and Negreanu said, Esfandiari asked him, what are you gonna do if I bet 15,000? And Negreanu said, I'm not sure yet. I definitely have something there. It's not going to be an easy decision, I promise. I think that also is meaningful because I think it would be unlikely for Negreanu to say that if he was super strong there, just because amongst equals, amongst players who consider themselves equals and good players, it's less likely that they're going to deceive in such kind of like
malicious,
a borderline underhanded way to say it won't be an easy decision. Like if Negreanu had wound up had a set here, I just think it would be rare for him to say it won't be an easy decision, I promise. And I definitely have some piece of that kind of thing. Just because, not to say it is underhanded, but it can be perceived amongst equals as being kind of like, well, why do you just basically just, lied to me?
Yeah.
And, even though that's obviously within the rules of the game and completely acceptable, it can come off as a little, you just don't see good players. You won't see Negreanu doing that to other good players, implying they have one hand strength and then showing up with another, like in such a obvious, superficial level meaning. Like you won't see him also say like, oh, I've got a set or something, and then wind up with whatever, some weekend. So I think that combined with him expressing that relief after Esfandiari didn't call the shove, those things cap his range, more, kind of those things make it less likely that he's, flopped a set. And so then you factor in like, oh, what hand, and Esfandiari's factoring, well, what hands could he shove with? Probably some tens, some draws, maybe some queens sometimes, but I think all those things kind of edge it more towards the non-queens.
Yeah, totally agree. And of course, this is a very famous hand, and
That's a fun one.
You guys don't know the run out. Let's just say no spoilers, but I feel bad for my boy. All right, so this is our three.
Oh, does Negreanu? Does he hit it?
You don't know that? Yeah, he definitely.
Gave it away at the end.
Turn cards a deuce.
No help for Daniel. Needs a king or a 10.
Oh.
King.
Ay,
There it
yeah.
is.
Oh.
Wow, it
Forgot
happens
that part.
again to Antonio.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, that's being result oriented. So obviously, a pleasure to have Zach here to talk to us through. Which some of us may catch portions of it, but for Zach to analyze it cohesively and holistically is a treat. And then just in good fashion, poker's so cruel. There's another hand where Antonio had a set of sevens, and then Derber was a set of queens. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff where Antonio just runs bad the show, but
It's a cruel game.
Yeah.
I should say too, when we're wrapping up, I think if we're wrapping up, I think despite all the things I've said about Negreanu and DJ and the live at the bike hand, I should say, it's not to say that those players can't be mixing it up or can't be balanced, but it's more like when I analyze things in that way, I'm just thinking about what is it usually going to be, that's the way to think about it. Obviously, somebody like DJ or Negreanu can obviously mix it up, but I think what we're talking about is what is it going to mean maybe for them in general or for people in general, or your average player. That's kind of how I view it. So it's not like a knock on people, I think, to analyze these kind of spots.
Right, we're just doing this for studying purposes, and you can see you see in the Friday games too with Garrett Adelstein and Brian Kim, our positives. It's we're always trying to do live reads, but the thing is do you act on them? That's huge. And then the better we get, the more experience we get. Zach Elwood's book/video courses help attribute to that, and just ideally help us make better decisions. And you also coached the November 9, right, for the World Series?
I've done it a couple times. I did it for Amir Lahavit in 2013 and then Max Steinberg in 2015. And coaching is kind of might be a bad term for it. I basically just analyzed footage and gave my thoughts, analyzed footage of the other players before the November 9, including any footage I could find from other events that existed, and also during the final table, I was sending my thoughts to their group of friends in a Skype group, and so yeah, I don't think coaching is the right word. More just consulting, I guess. Yeah.
Got it. All right, so we're going to go back to the live stream, and you could find these videos in the archives.